Welcome to Sherry Hales Ministries. I'm Sherry Hales, and today we will continue with our ministry series, How to Engage in and Exercise Effective Christian Communication in Word. Today the word that we will be discussing is declare. So I want to get right into it. So to declare, it is to make known or state clearly, especially in explicit or formal terms. To announce officially or proclaim, to manifest, reveal, show. So our focus scripture for this entire series is found in Philemon 6, and it says that the communication of thy faith may become effectual by the acknowledging of every good thing which is in you in Christ Jesus. And that is what started this whole series, because it talked about the communication of our faith becoming effectual by the acknowledging of every good thing that's within us in Christ Jesus. And so that's why I wanted to look at the words that are in the Bible, dealing with communication. And so that's how this series came about. And so if you would like to see some of the previous videos in this series, you can look at my website, www.sherryhalesministries.weebly.com. The scripture that I will be looking at today, the main scripture, is found in Judges 13 to 16, and it is the story of Samson. He was one of the most well-known judges, and we are going to look at that story. But I also want to just step back for a moment and just give an overview of some of the chapters leading up to Judges, because in the series we've been talking about these different words, and and it's been pulling from different books in the Bible. But I just want to look back at the books leading up to Judges, because I want to try to make things a little more clear, so that it does not become confusing. So, and again, the word that we are looking at is declare. However, in looking at that word, there will be other things that we learn. So we will, the word is the focus, but we will learn other things as well. So I just want to give, again, just kind of an overview of the books from Genesis leading up to Judges, but also just an overview of the Bible. So the Bible is really a library of books. It is 66 books, and they were written at different times in history. So the Old Testament is 39 books, and it's divided into the law, books of law, dealing with the laws that God gave his people. That's Genesis to Deuteronomy. History books, Joshua to Esther. Poetry books, Job to Song of Solomon. And then there are the prophets, and they're broken into major prophets and minor prophets, depending on how big the book was. So the bigger books were called the major prophets. That's Isaiah to Daniel. The minor prophets, Hosea to Malachi. That's the Old Testament. Then we get into the New Testament, and it starts with the Gospels. There are 4 Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Then it goes into church history, which is the book of Acts. Then it goes into the letters or epistles. Romans to Philemon, those are Pauline epistles, are written by Paul. The book of Hebrews, I believe that there's some debate about who actually wrote it. They think it may have been Paul, but I think there's debate with that one. So, but the other ones are general epistles, and based on my study, I'll include Hebrews in the general epistles, and that goes from Genesis to Jude. Then the final book of prophecy, end time prophecy, is Revelation. Okay, so I just, I like for things to be clear and understandable, and certainly we don't want to be confused when it comes to trying to study the Bible and learn about the Bible. So I just thought that, I just kind of thought that would be a good idea to just give an overview. Now I'm going to give just a brief overview of the books leading up to Judges. Judges is in the Old Testament. So, and I'm basically just going to read what I wrote for the most part. So, and in these books, again, the focus is the word declare. So, the word, I am going to talk about sometimes when God declared things. It did not necessarily say declare in those scriptures, but it was the act of declaring. So God created, in Genesis, God created the heaven and the earth on the first day, and he created light, and he declared that the light was good, and he divided the light from the darkness, and declared the light to be day and the darkness to be night. God did not create darkness. He separated light from the darkness. He did not create the darkness. The second day, God created a firmament, which is basically the sky or the atmosphere. And he declared that it would divide the waters under the firmament from the waters above the firmament. The third day, he created the dry land, the seas, plants, trees, and he declared that they were good. The fourth day, he created the light holders, which were the sun, the moon, the stars. He declared that they would be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. The fifth day, he created sea creatures and birds. He declared that it was good. The sixth day, he created the animals by commanding the earth to bring them forth. He declared that it was good. Then God created man in his image, after his likeness, to have dominion over the fish, the fowl, the cattle, the earth, every creeping thing. And God blessed man, male and female, and commanded that they be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth, and subdue it. And God gave every herb as tree for meat, and tree for meat, and he gave the green herb to the animals and birds. He rested on the seventh day, so he blessed and sanctified that day. And God told man he could eat from every tree except for the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. He declared that in the day, if man should eat from that tree, he would surely die. And we know the story. We know that Adam did eat. So that day he died spiritually, which was to be separated from God. That is spiritual death. The Bible tells us that a day with God is like 1,000 years. So man did die within that day physically as well. So then God, what happened after the fall, it opened up the door to the enemy to be able to interfere with man, because in Adam's act of disobeying God, he basically gave everything that God had given to him. He basically turned it over to the devil and unleashed the devil on mankind. And then that's how the whole spiral of mankind began. how everything that God had, declared was good. The earth was blessed, man was blessed, the birds and the trees and the animals and everything was blessed. But when Adam turned everything over to the devil, it caused evil and wickedness to enter into the earth. And that's why we have all of the problems that we see in mankind because of that very act. God did not want to leave the earth in that condition, though. And so he decided to prepare a people for himself, to separate a people unto himself, that he could work redemption through those people. The first person was Noah. So Noah and his family was first, and then he worked through Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And then Jacob had 12 sons. They became the 12 tribes of Jacob. And one of Jacob's sons, he was Joseph. He was his favored son. The other brothers were jealous and sold him into slavery. And he ended up in Egypt. So that's how Joseph ended up in Egypt. But God had actually allowed that event to take place because he would later use it to save Jacob's family and to save the Israelites, because there was a famine. And when Joseph was in Egypt, he became favored, and he rose to only being second to the Pharaoh. And he was a favored man there. He was able to bring his family to Egypt and deliver them from the famine. Okay, so then what happened? They were in Egypt. Israelites were now in Egypt. And they prospered and they multiplied. And they were there a very long time, and people, started to die off. Joseph died, all of his brothers, all of that generation. They died out. Another Pharaoh came into power that didn't know anything about Joseph, about how he had also saved the people of Egypt from famine. So this Pharaoh didn't know anything about that, but he didn't like that he saw this people in his land. They were not Egyptians. And he saw them prospering and doing well, and he didn't like it. And so that's what set in motion him trying to get rid of the Israelite people, and he put them in bondage and enslaved them and oppressed them severely. They ended up calling out to God. God raised up a savior or a deliverer for them in the person of Moses. So then that's how Moses entered in. So we all know, all of the story about Moses, and he did finally get them and lead them into, led them out of Egypt, but the people murmured and complained, and they ended up wandering in the wilderness for 40 years as a result. Now, Moses, let's see. Moses, so when they were in the wilderness for about 40 years, and then God had promised them a land flowing with milk and honey, and that's where they were headed to. They had a destination that they were going to. And so they were headed to the land flowing with milk and honey. And that was Canaan. But the Canaan was occupied by people. But God, God created everything. The earth it belongs to the Lord and the fullness thereof. Everything belongs to God. So even though people were there, God wanted that land to belong to his chosen people. He didn't want the wicked nations to be there. He wanted his people to be there. The land was occupied by people. They were, the Canaanites were there, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, Jebusites. These people were in that the land that they were trying to go to occupy. So, let's see. So Moses actually did not make it to the promised land with them. And that's a whole story. I'm not going to go into that. But he didn't make it to the promised land. God did allow him to see it, though, before he died. He took him up onto Mount Nebo and allowed him to take a look and see this land that the people would, inherit, that he had prepared, that God had prepared for the people. So he did see it, but he didn't enter it. Joshua actually was the next leader after Moses that God raised up. He actually led the people there. So I started in the book of Genesis, then I kind of flowed into the things that happened in the book of Exodus. And then the next book is the book of Leviticus. So in the book of Leviticus, God spoke to the people and he wanted to establish a priesthood through the Levites and to declare to them rules and laws and procedures that they must abide by for the priesthood and to function as priests. So that book of Leviticus is about the priesthood and the priesthood being established. And then all of the laws and the sacrifices and all of those different things that you hear about sometimes. That's where all of that was established. It was, and you can read about it in the book of Leviticus. The next book is the book of Numbers. So, in the book of Numbers, God spoke to Moses. So at this point, Moses was still alive. I kind of jumped ahead in telling what was going to happen, but Moses was still alive. So God spoke to Moses and instructed him to take a census of the people and to create an army. So you see in the Bible, you see how God made creation, and then he created society, and towns and things like that were created as well. I mean, I didn't talk about any of that, but all of that, the establishment of everything is in the Bible. The census, and today we are actually dealing with the census right now, but it started in the Bible. God commanded the first census to be taken, and that's where society learns how to be. The beginning of it was from the Bible. That's how man learned to be, and that's how order and structure came about in humanity, and that's why we have a civilized society, because of the foundation that God laid in the Bible. So the book of Numbers, he commanded that the census be taken, and then also the army was established. Rules were established to govern an organized society. In the book of, let's see. The book of Deuteronomy, Moses reminds the people of their covenant with God as they were about to enter into Canaan, the promised land. So they were about to enter into Canaan. So this is where Joshua, again, I already said this. Moses didn't enter, but he did go up on the mountain. God took him up on a high mountain. He was able to look and see everything, that the people would inherit this land. Joshua became the new leader. The next book, the book of Joshua. So Joshua got them into into Canaan. They miraculously crossed the Jordan River. They conquered the town of Jericho. They then took possession of the main areas of Canaan. But remember, there were people that were already in that land. So, but God gave the land to the Israelites. That's how they got it. God gave the land to them. Then and again, let me back up for a second. It was God's to give, because God created it. and so he can give it to who he wants because he is the owner of it. So they took possession of the main areas of Canaan. The book of Judges, in the book of Judges, let's see. So now in the book of Judges, Joshua died. Okay, so Joshua died, and the people began to do evil and serve idols. So when the leader would die, the people would revert back, and start to, well, they were doing, it was a pattern of grumbling and complaining, falling away from God, but this happened a lot in Judges. So because the people, they actually turned from God in such a way that God allowed for the people that were there to kind of oppress them, because they had just turned, they didn't want anything to do with God. But then they started to call out to God, and then when they would call out to God, God would raise up a person called a judge to deliver them, basically. So judge is also a deliverer, a person to deliver them from the oppression that they were going through. So I hope that gives a background to kind of help clarify some of the things that's going on, because I know that it can become confusing. But if you have kind of an overview, it can help you to better understand some of the things, like why did this happen, what's going on now. So that's why I wanted to give that overview. So let's see. So now in the book of Judges, there were quite a few judges. I believe there were, let me see, I'll name them. I looked, I hope I didn't miss anything, but I'm going to name when I was reading, and I was underlining who the judges were. So there was Othniel, Ehud, Shamgar, Deborah, and Barak, Gideon, Tola, Jair, Jephthah, Ibzan, Elon, Abdon, and then Samson. Samson's the one we're going to mainly focus on. So that we're going to focus on. So let me just go ahead and read that. Samson is found in the book of Judges. If you want to read along, I'm going to read from the King James Version. And this is verses 13 to 16. So it's not that long. So I'm going to go ahead and read that. So it starts with the birth of Samson. It says, and the children of Israel did evil again in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord delivered them into the hand of the Philistines 40 years. And there was a certain man of Zorah, of the family of the Danites, whose name was Manoah, and his wife was barren and bare not. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto the woman and said unto her, Behold, now thou art barren and bearest not, but thou shalt conceive and bear a son. Now therefore beware, I pray thee, drink not wine nor strong drink, and eat not any unclean thing. For lo, thou shalt conceive and bear a son, and no razor shall come on his head, for the child shall be a Nazarite. And if you want to know more about a Nazarite, you can read Numbers, the book of Numbers, chapter 6. So the child shall be a Nazarite unto God from the womb. He shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines. Then the woman came and told her husband, saying, A man of God came unto me, and his countenance was like the countenance of an angel of God, very terrible. But I asked him not whence he was, neither told he me his name. But he said unto me, Behold, thou shalt conceive and bear a son. And now drink no wine, nor strong drink, neither eat any unclean thing. For the child shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb to the day of his death. Then Manoah entreated the Lord and said, O my Lord, let the man of God which thou didst send come again unto us, and teach us what we shall do unto the child that shall be born. And God hearkened to the voice of Manoah. And the angel of God came again unto the woman as she sat in the field. But Manoah her husband was not with her. And the woman made haste and ran, and shewed her husband, and said unto him, Behold, the man hath appeared unto me that came unto me the other day. And Manoah arose and went after his wife, and came to the man, and said unto him, Art thou the man that speakest unto the woman? And he said, I am. And Manoah said, Now let thy words come to pass. How shall we order the child? And how shall we do unto him? And the angel of the Lord said unto Manoah, Of all that I said unto the woman, let her beware. She may not eat of anything that cometh of the vine, neither let her drink wine or strong drink, nor eat any unclean thing. All that I commanded her, let her observe. And Manoah said unto the angel of the Lord, I pray thee, let us detain thee, until we shall have made ready a kid for thee. And the angel of the Lord said unto Manoah, Though thou detain me, I will not eat of thy bread. And if thou wilt offer a burnt offering, thou must offer it unto the Lord. For Manoah knew not that he was an angel of the Lord. And Manoah said unto the angel of the Lord, What is thy name? That when thy sayings come to pass, we may do thee honor. And the angel of the Lord said unto him, Why askest thou thus after my name, seeing it is a secret? So Manoah took a kid with a meat offering, and offered it upon a rock unto the Lord. And the angel did wondrously. And Manoah and his wife looked on. For it came to pass, when the flame went up toward heaven from off the altar, that the angel of the Lord ascended in the flame of the altar. And Manoah and his wife looked on it, and fell on their faces to the ground. But the angel of the Lord did no more appear to Manoah and to his wife. Then Manoah knew that he was the angel of the Lord. And Manoah said unto his wife, We shall surely die, because we have seen God. But his wife said unto him, If the Lord were pleased to kill us, he would not have received a burnt offering and a meat offering at our hands, neither would he have shewed us all these things, nor would as at this time have told us such things as these. And the woman bare a son, and called his name Samson. And the child grew, and the Lord blessed him. And the Spirit of the Lord began to move him at times in the camp of Dan, between Zorah and Eshtaol. And Samson went down to Timnath, and saw a woman in Timnath of the daughters of the Philistines. And he came up and told his father and his mother, and said, I have seen a woman in Timnath of the daughters of the Philistines. Now therefore get her for me to wife. Then his father and his mother said unto him, Is there never a woman among the daughters of thy brethren, or among all my people, that thou goest to take a wife of the uncircumcised Philistines? And Samson said unto his father, Get her for me, for she pleaseth me well. But his father and his mother knew not that it was of the Lord that he sought an occasion against the Philistines, for at that time the Philistines had dominion over Israel. Then went Samson down, and his father and his mother, to Timnath, and came to the vineyards and Timnath, and behold, a young lion roared against him. And the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him, and he rent him, as he would have rent a kid, and he had nothing in his hand. But he told not his father or his mother what he had done. And he went down and talked with the woman, and she pleased Samson well. And after a time he returned to take her, and he turned aside to see the carcass of the lion. And behold, there was a swarm of bees and honey in the carcass of the lion. And he took thereof in his hands, and went on eating, and came to his father and mother. And he gave them, and they did eat. But he told not them that he had taken the honey out of the carcass of the lion. So his father went down unto the woman, and Samson made there a feast, for so used the young men to do. And it came to pass, when they saw him, that they brought 30 companions to be with him. And Samson said unto them, I will now put forth a riddle unto you. If ye can certainly declare it me within the 7 days of the feast, and find it out, then I will give you 30 sheets and 30 change of garments. But if ye cannot declare it me, then shall ye give me 30 sheets and 30 change of garments. And they said unto him, Put forth thy riddle, that we may hear. And he said unto them, Out of the eater came forth meat, and out of the strong came forth sweetness, and they could not in 3 days expound the riddle. And it came to pass on the 7th day, that they said unto Samson's wife, Entice thy husband, that he may declare unto us the riddle, lest we burn thee and thy father's house with fire. Have ye called us to take that we have? Is it not so? And Samson's wife wept before him, and said, Thou dost but hate me, and lovest me not. Thou hast put forth a riddle unto the children of my people, and hast not told it me. And he said unto her, Behold, I have not told it my father nor my mother, and shall I tell thee? And she wept before him the 7 days, while their feast lasted. And it came to pass on the 7th day that he told her, because she lay sore upon him. And she told the riddle to the children of her people. And the men of the city said unto him on the 7th day before the sun went down, What is sweeter than honey? And what is stronger than a lion? And he said unto them, If ye had not plowed with my heifer, ye had not found out my riddle. And the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he went down to Ashkelon, and slew 30 men of them, and took their spoil, and gave change of garments unto them, which expounded the riddle. And his anger was kindled, and he went up to his father's house. But Samson's wife was given to his companion, whom he had used as his friend. But it came to pass within a while after, in the time of wheat harvest, that Samson visited his wife with a kid, and he said, I will go in to my wife into the chamber. But her father would not suffer him to go in. And her father said, I verily thought that thou hadst utterly hated her. Therefore I gave her to thy companion. Is not her younger sister fairer than she? Take her, I pray thee, instead of her. And Samson said concerning them, Now shall I be more blameless than the Philistines, though I do them a displeasure. And Samson went and caught 300 foxes, and took firebrands, and turned tail to tail, and put a firebrand in the midst between 2 tails. And when he had set the brands on fire, he let them go into the standing corn of the Philistines, and burnt up both the shocks and also the standing corn, with the vineyards and olives. Then the Philistines said, Who hath done this? And they answered, Samson, the son-in-law of the Timnite, because he had taken his wife and given her to his companion. And the Philistines came up and burnt her and her father with fire. And Samson said unto them, Though ye have done this, yet will I be avenged of you, and after that I will cease. And he smote them hip and thigh with a great slaughter. And he went down and dwelt in the top of the rock Edom. Then the Philistines went up and pitched in Judah, and spread themselves in Lehi. And the men of Judah said, Why are ye come up against us? And they answered, To bind Samson are we come up, to do to him as he hath done to us. Then 3,000 men of Judah went to the top of the rock Edom, and said to Samson, Knowest thou not that the Philistines are rulers over us? What is this that thou hast done unto us? And he said unto them, As they did unto me, so have I done unto them. And they said unto him, We are come down to bind thee, that we may deliver thee into the hand of the Philistines. And Samson said unto them, Swear unto me that ye will not fail, that ye will not fall upon me yourselves. And they spake unto him, saying, No, but we will bind thee fast, and deliver thee into their hand. But surely we will not kill thee. And they bound him with two new cords, and brought him up from the rock. And when he came unto Lehi, the Philistines shouted against him, and the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him. And the cords that were upon his arms became as flax that was burnt with fire, and his bands loosed from off his hands. And he found a new jawbone of an ass, and put forth his hand, and took it, and slew 1,000 men therewith. And Samson said, With the jawbone of an ass, heaps upon heaps, with the jaw of an ass have I slain 1,000 men. And it came to pass, when he had made an end of speaking, that he cast away the jawbone out of his hand, and called that place Ramath Lehi. And he was sore athirst, and called unto the Lord, and said, Thou hast given this great deliverance into thy hand, into the hand of thy servant, and now shall I die for thirst, and fall into the hand of the uncircumcised? But God clave a hollow place that was in the jaw, and there came water thereout. And when he had drunk, the spirit came again, and he revived. Wherefore he called the name thereof En Hekor, which is in Lehi unto this day. And he judged Israel in the days of the Philistines 20 years. Excuse me. Then went Samson to Gaza, and saw there a harlot, and went into her. And it was told the Gazites, saying, Samson is come hither. And they compassed him in, and laid wait for him all night in the gate of the city, and were quiet all the night, saying, In the morning, when it is day, we shall kill him. And Samson lay till midnight, and arose at midnight, and took the doors of the gate of the city, and the two posts, and went away with them, bar and all, and put them upon his shoulders, and carried them up to the top of a hill that is before Hebron. And it came to pass afterward that he loved a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. And the lords of the Philistines came up unto her, and said unto her, Entice him, and see wherein his great strength lieth, and by what means we may prevail against him, that we may bind him to afflict him, and we will give thee, every one of us, 1,100 pieces of silver. And Delilah said to Samson, Tell me, I pray thee, wherein thy great strength lieth, and wherewith thou mightest be bound to afflict thee. And Samson said unto her, If they bind me with 7 green withs that were never dried, then shall I be weak, and as another man. Then the lords of the Philistines brought up to her 7 green withs, which had not been dried, and she bound him with them. Now there were men lying in wait, abiding with her in the chamber. And she said unto him, The Philistines be upon thee, Samson. And he brake the withs as a thread of tow is broken when it toucheth the fire, so his strength was not known. And Delilah said unto Samson, Behold, thou hast mocked me, and told me lies. Now tell me, I pray thee, wherewith thou mightest be bound. And he said unto her, If they bind me fast with new ropes that were never occupied, then shall I be weak be as another man. Delilah therefore took new ropes, and bound him therewith, and said unto him, The Philistines be upon thee, Samson. And they were liers in wait, abiding in the chamber. and he brake them from off his arms like a thread. And Delilah said unto Samson, Hitherto thou hast mocked me, and told me lies. Tell me, wherewith thou mightest be bound. And he said unto her, If thou weavest the 7 locks of my head with the web. And she fastened it with the pin, and said unto him, The Philistines be upon thee, Samson. And he awaked out of his sleep, and went away with the pin of the beam, and with the web. And she said unto him, How canst thou say, I love thee, when thine heart is not with me? Thou hast mocked me these 3 times, and hast not told me wherein thy great strength lieth. And it came to pass, when she pressed him daily with her words, and urged him, so that his soul was vexed unto death, that he told her all his heart, and said unto her, There hath not come a razor upon mine head, for I have been a Nazarite unto God from my mother's womb. If I be shaven, then my strength will go from me, and I shall become weak, and be like any other man. And when Delilah saw that he had told her all his heart, she sent and called for the lords of the Philistines, saying, Come up this once, for he hath showed me all his heart. Then the lords of the Philistines came up unto her, and brought money in their hand. And she made him sleep upon her knees. And she called for a man, and she caused him to shave off the 7 locks of his head. And she began to afflict him, and his strength went from him. And she said, The Philistines be upon thee, Samson. And he awoke out of his sleep, and said, I will go out as other times before, and shake myself. And he wist not that the Lord was departed from him. But the Philistines took him, and put out his eyes, and brought him down to Gaza, and bound him with fetters of brass, and he did grind in the prison house. Howbeit the hair of his head began to grow again, after he was shaven. Then the lords of the Philistines gathered them together for to offer a great sacrifice unto Dagon, their god, and to rejoice. For they said, Our God hath delivered Samson, our enemy, into our hand. And when the people saw him, they praised their God. For they said, Our God hath delivered into our hands our enemy, and the destroyer of our country, which slew many of us. And it came to pass, when their hearts were merry, that they said, Call for Samson, that he may make us sport. And they called for Samson out of the prison house, and he made them sport. And they set him between the pillars. And Samson said unto the lad that had led him by the hand, Suffer me that I may fill the pillars whereupon the house standeth, that I may lean upon them. Now the house was full of men and women, and the lords of the Philistines were there. And there were upon the roof about 3,000 men and women that beheld while Samson made sport. And Samson called unto the Lord, and said, O Lord God, remember me, I pray thee, and strengthen me, I pray thee, only this once, O God, that I may be at once avenged of the Philistines for my 2 eyes. And Samson took hold of the 2 middle pillars upon which the house stood, and on which it was borne up, of the one with his right hand, and of the other with his left. And Samson said, Let me die with the Philistines. And he bowed himself with all his might, and the house fell upon the lords, and upon all the people that were therein. So the dead which he slew at his death were more than they which he slew in his life. Then his brethren and all the house of his father came down, and took him, and brought him up, and buried him between Zorah and Eshtaol, in the burying place of Manoah his father. And he judged Israel 20 years. And so that is the story of the judge Samson. Again, the word that is the main focus that we have been looking at is declare. So I started and I talked about declare in the Bible at different times. When the Lord declared made declarations. The word declare was not used, but the act of declaring was being done. And so this book, so I'm not going to, normally I'll go back and I'll try to go, verse by verse and break them down. But this was a little longer than I usually read, a little bit longer of a passage. So I'm not going to reread this entire passage. But what I want to point out, so this overall story, some of the stories in the Bible can be just a bit puzzling when you really start to really think about it. I mean, we've all heard about the story of Samson, and I think the main thing is about, the strength of Samson and how amazing that would be, that someone would be that strong. And so, but when you really read the story and you start to break it down and you see the different things, it can be confusing. But I think what we need to remember, what's in my mind anyway, as I read these things, this is people making choices. And even though he was a man chosen by God and he knew God, and he was chosen by God to be a deliverer of his people, to deliver them from the oppression of the people that were in that land that God had given to the Israelites. God wanted the Israelites to have that land, but there were people there that were oppressing them. And it happened because the Israelites kept turning away from God, which then exposed them to the oppression of the enemy, similar to how Adam, gave everything to the devil. And then it exposed humanity to Satan. So it kind of just, makes it clear that people will revert to bad choices, and it seems like, well, why would they do that? It's because people get into their emotions, they get into their desires, and they start making bad choices. And that's why it's so important to, if as a Christian, to allow God to just be that guiding factor to lead us on the path that is right for us. Because no matter how long you've known God, no matter how you've been following, you have a heart for the Lord, you've been called, but in our own flesh and humanity, all of us are frail, and we can easily be misled. So Samson was misled by his eyes. He was finding these Philistine women. First of all, he was supposed to be, delivering his people from the Philistine people. And it did say that, the first time when he went there, it was because God allowed that to happen, so that, the deliverance from those people could begin. But in the story, he was just led by his eyes, and his eyes kept getting him into trouble. And then that's what the Philistines, they gouged out his eyes, and so in that story, there's a lot of different messages that can be looked at from that story. But the purpose of this video is not to try to preach or to get points and break it down. The purpose of this is just a teaching video. And so, just looking at the facts, it just shows us that we need God. We need God, and to just keep your eye on the Lord, because when you start allowing other things to lead you by your eyes, your things that start to entice you or whatever, you can easily fall into temptation and to get into terrible trouble, even if you're called by God. So the message is just keep your eyes on the Lord. Keep your eyes up. That's what I kind of get from it. Keep your eyes on the Lord. The reason that I did choose this also, as far as the word declares, because The word declare was used a few times in this. So when Samson was getting married and they were having the marriage, that whole ceremony and everything that was going on that had to do with the marriage. And he says, and Samson said unto them, I will now put forth a riddle unto you, if you could certainly declare it me. So Samson was telling them, can you declare? Can you tell me what this means, basically? But see, there was so much going on. Samson was saying, if you could tell me what this means, I'll give you 30, basically 30 outfits. I'll give you 30 outfits if you could tell me. And I guess that was just too much for them to resist. And probably back then, clothes and having a change of garment was a big deal, probably. And for them Samson to say, I'll give you 30 changes of clothes if you could tell me this. So it enticed them. And they weren't like people that Samson knew. He just went there and they just decided to be in the wedding party. And then he kept telling them, he said, but if you cannot declare it me, if you can't tell me, then shall ye give me 30 sheets and 30 changes of garments. So Samson was about to have a whole wardrobe based on this. And apparently, money was at the heart of it, and the acquiring of things, which is something else that is prevalent in society that will cause people to get in trouble. Money and the desire to have certain things will lead to trouble. So Samson was using this, can you tell me, declare it me. But he used it in an unwise manner, that put forth, put things into motion that, where, just a lot of stuff happened. Now, his whole purpose was to be a judge, and to help deliver his people. In the end, he did actually deliver them, but he also lost his life in the process. So in the end, he did deliver his people from the oppression that they were suffering at the hands of the Philistines, but he also lost his own life. So there's a lot, in that, to just think about, and just to remember, that it's important that we keep our eyes on God. Things will come to entice us, and all types of things, and and a lot of it sometimes is being sent. It's being sent. A lot of times it's being sent by the enemy, or it's being done intentionally. So just, I think that's just the message that I want to keep it at. It's just keep your eyes on God, and if you want to follow God, keep your eyes on God and follow where He leads you. And that, I think that will help us all if we just keep our eyes, keep our focus on the Lord. So I hope, and and I pray that was a message that that is just beneficial. In looking at these different words, that so often when I actually thought about it myself, because I pray about these series about, and I ask God, what do you want me to talk about next? I'll ask the Lord and He'll give me things. So it's not like I'm just thinking up stuff and coming up with it on my own. And when He gave me some of these words, and I started seeing declare, and there's a way in which Christians normally talk about declare. And so I was thinking about it in that way. But then as I start going through the process, and I'm seeing God is showing me declare, He's showing me something different than what I had in my mind that I thought I was going to be talking about. So I'm learning too. I'm learning as I'm just yielding to the Lord, uh, and you know, it just it has just given me a different perspective on the word declare, and actually something that I even need to process because I do study it out. I study it out so that I can present it, but then I actually also have to go back and really absorb it. So I go back over the information myself as well. Um, and I think the message is, you know, the things that when God declares things, and when He declares something, that it is so. It what He declares. So I talked earlier about the things that He declared. God is. Let me look at that definition. And find that definition one more time. Um, to make something known or to state something clearly, especially in explicit or formal terms. So when God does that, it is so. It is so. What he declares something, it is so. Um, but the way Samson used that word, he was playing around with things. His intentions were not right. So he was being showed us that he was led a lot by his eyes. He's getting himself into trouble based on his eyes. But then he wanted things too. So he figured out a way that he could, come up with this riddle and tell these people, "Can you declare it me?" Because he was trying to get things. So the desire to attain things, money, cars, wardrobes, all the things that people desire and want. If you don't keep your eyes on God and allow Him to lead you along that path, you can get yourself into some serious trouble. Even if at the end of it you do actually do the thing that God called you to do and wanted you to do, but you could have just have a terrible outcome. So just keep our eyes on God, and the things that we are desiring. Let everything be led. Just follow the golden paved road. I talked about that in the faith series, and that's staying on that path. God gave me that as God gives me revelations of different things and gives me visuals to help me even clearly understand in a better way. So in heaven, the streets are paved with gold. So on earth, God showed me that the golden paved road is symbolic of walking along that path that will eventually lead us to the streets of gold in heaven. So follow God, and He will lead us down the right path. So I believe I'm going to go ahead and just wrap it up right there. Again, I pray that it's been a blessing to you. I ask that the Lord will bless you and keep you, make His face to shine upon you. I ask that He will be gracious to you, lift up His countenance upon you, and give you peace. And I ask that for you and your family. I ask that for me and my family. And I just ask that the Lord just keep us. Keep us protected from all of the ills that are in society right now, all of the things that are going on. I just pray for relief for anyone that needs relief, that God provides you with the relief that you need, whatever it may be. So I just pray that the Lord will answer your needs and provide help for you that is tangible, and that He'll keep you and He'll keep me, keep us safe from all of the things that's going on in this world. We're living in a strange time and I just pray that he will keep us all safe and protected. So I pray God's blessings over you. Until the next time, be blessed and walk with God.